Ladies and gentlemen, there are some weights that were never meant to be strapped to your shoulders. You weren't built to carry everything, every pain, every struggle, every unanswered question. But life will try to convince you otherwise. Life will hand you disappointments like boulders, and if you're not careful, you'll start stacking them on your back like they belong there. You'll take on the pressure to be everything to everyone. You'll drag around guilt like a suitcase you can't let go of. You'll wake up tired, go to bed weary, and call it normal. But the truth is, you're carrying what was never assigned to you. Some of you are carrying generational pain. You weren't the one who caused it, but now you feel responsible to fix it. You're trying to heal wounds you didn't inflict. You're walking around with trauma that didn't start with you, but somehow ended up on your shoulders. That weight doesn't belong to you. You're trying to be the peacemaker, the provider, the protector, and the fixer, all at the same time, but you're breaking under the pressure because you were never meant to be all that. There are people under the sound of this message who are carrying expectations that were never spoken, but always felt. You're holding up images, trying to live up to roles you never agreed to play. The pressure to be strong, the pressure to be successful, the pressure to never cry, never break, never fail. You're carrying the weight of pretending. And let me tell you, pretending is heavy. Keeping it all together when you're falling apart is exhausting. Carrying burdens in silence because you don't want to look weak will drain your soul dry. Sometimes the heaviest weights are invisible. The ones no one sees, the private fears, the silent battles, the inner questions like, am I enough? Will I ever get through this? You go through the motions. You smile in public. You perform. But behind closed doors, you're collapsing under the load of loneliness, fear, and weariness. You don't talk about it because you think no one would understand. But I came to tell you that weight is too much for you. That load was never meant to be yours. You don't have to be the answer to every problem. You don't have to carry the full responsibility for every outcome. That's not strength, that's self. Destruction disguised as duty. You've been living like it's all on you, but it's not. It never was. That's why your knees are buckling. That's why your joy feels fragile. That's why your peace is inconsistent. Because your soul was never designed to carry burdens that only divine hands can hold. There is freedom in release. There is power in putting down what doesn't belong to you, and when you finally drop that weight, when you finally say, I can't do this alone, that's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's the moment your healing begins. That's the moment your back straightens, your soul breathes, and your heart beats with purpose again. Because some weights are holy assignments, but others are chains. Know the difference, and let the chains fall. We live in a world that idolizes control. We are taught from an early age to hold it all together, to manage every outcome, to keep smiling even when the world is falling apart. We're told that surrender is weakness, that giving up is failure, and that vulnerability is a liability. So we wear our masks, tighten our grip, and keep pushing, thinking that if we can just hold on a little longer, if we can just try a little harder, everything will be okay. But let me tell you something powerful. Surrender is not weakness. Surrender is the doorway to strength. There is a sacred kind of strength that shows up when you throw your hands up and say, I can't do this on my own. That's not quitting. That's alignment. That's not defeat. That's strategy. Because the strongest place you can stand is in the center of your surrender. When you finally let go of the illusion that you're in control, when you stop playing God in your own life, when you say, I don't know the way, but I trust the one who does, that's when the breakthrough begins. Some of you have been trying to fix everything with your own hands. You've been manipulating situations, trying to force outcomes, hustling for your worth, stretching yourself so thin just to prove that you can carry it all. But your strength isn't in how much you can carry. Your strength is in knowing when to let go. Your power is not found in the perfection of your performance, but in the posture of your surrender. There is a peace that comes when you realize you don't have to hold it all together. You don't have to pretend to be strong when you're breaking. You don't have to smile through pain that's choking you. Real strength is saying, I'm not okay, but I know I will be. Real strength is in the tears you shed in private that water the soil of your future. Real strength is in the silence, in the waiting, in the trusting. You've been taught to fight, but there comes a time when the battle is not yours. There comes a moment when the most courageous thing you can do is rest. To rest in the promise, to rest in the process, to rest in knowing that surrender doesn't mean you're losing. It means you're finally letting the right one lead. Let the world call it weakness. Let them whisper about your breaking point. But when you bow in surrender, something rises up in you that cannot be shaken. A strength that is not built on striving, but on trust. A fire that burns from the inside out, not from performance, but from purpose. So stop trying to hold the whole world in your hands. Lift those hands instead, not in defeat, but in surrender. Because that's where the real power begins. There are some wounds too deep for bandages, some scars too raw for surface solutions. You can cover it up with a smile, dress it in success, distract yourself with busy schedules and loud environments. But what's broken on the inside will always speak louder than what's dressed up on. The outside healing is not something you can manufacture in your own strength. Restoration is not a DIY project. There are parts of your soul that no therapist, no friend, no self-help book can fully reach. That space only God can heal. You've been trying to fix it, haven't you? Trying to patch it up, trying to keep moving, telling yourself, I'm over it, when the truth is, it still haunts your quiet moments. That heartbreak that split your soul, that betrayal that cut deeper than any knife, that loss that left a hole you don't even talk about. You keep walking like it didn't hurt, but every step reminds you that something is still bleeding, and the more you try to hide it, the heavier it gets. Let me tell you, healing doesn't come through hustle. Restoration doesn't come by pretending. You can't outwork your pain. You can't outrun your past. You've been carrying a broken piece, hoping time would make it whole again. But time doesn't heal all wounds. God does. Only God can step into the crevices of your soul that no one else sees. Only God can take the pieces of your shattered heart and make it not just whole, but stronger, softer, wiser. Only God can sit with you in the silence of your suffering and whisper peace into the storm that's been raging inside you for years. He doesn't need your perfection. He's not waiting for you to clean it up before he steps in. He wants the mess. He wants the truth. He wants the real, unfiltered pain, the kind you hide from everyone else. There's healing in honesty. There's breakthrough in brokenness. But you have to be willing to stop pretending you're okay when you're not. You have to stop giving the world pieces of yourself that you haven't let God touch yet. He can't heal what you keep hiding. He can't restore what you won't release. You've been managing it, but He wants to heal it. You've cried yourself to sleep, asking for peace. You've begged for change, but today is the day to stop trying to fix it with your own strength. Today is the day to fall apart in the arms of the one who knows how to put you back together again. He doesn't just want to numb your pain. He wants to transform it. He doesn't just want to heal the wound, he wants to use it. And when he's done, the same place where you bled will become the place where you shine. The very pain that nearly killed you will become the platform that builds you. Because only God can heal what broke you and make it beautiful again. You thought it was rejection. You thought the closed door meant you weren't good enough. You thought the no was a reflection of your value, your potential, your future. But what you didn't realize was that behind that rejection was divine protection. Behind that breakup, that lost job, that denied opportunity, that unexpected goodbye was a God who saw what you couldn't see and knew what you didn't know. You cried over what you thought was the end, not realizing it was the beginning of something better, something safer, something more aligned with your purpose. Sometimes the greatest blessings in your life are the doors that never opened. Sometimes the most powerful answer to your prayer is no. Because there are people who smiled in your face, but would have poisoned your destiny if they stayed in your life. There are places you wanted to go that would have broken your spirit if you arrived too soon. There are things you were chasing that would have enslaved you if you caught them. But you couldn't see it then. All you saw was rejection. All you felt was the sting of being left out, passed over, forgotten. But heaven was working behind the curtain, pulling strings, shifting timelines, moving you out of danger you didn't even know was there. You see, protection doesn't always feel like comfort. Sometimes it feels like pain. Sometimes it feels like heartbreak. But later, you realize that what you were crying about was actually the hand of God pulling you out of a trap. You thought you were losing, but you were being rescued. You thought you were being punished, but you were being preserved. You thought the detour was a delay, but it was actually divine redirection. If you had gotten what you asked for when you wanted it, you would have settled for less than what God had planned. If that person stayed, you wouldn't have discovered your own strength. If that door opened, you would have walked into a place that couldn't carry your anointing. So don't mourn what God removed. Don't resent the redirection. Learn to see rejection as evidence that you are being protected, that your story is still being written by a higher hand. Sometimes you have to thank God not just for what He gave, but for what He blocked. Thank Him for the relationships that didn't work, the jobs that didn't last, the people who didn't stay. Because what looked like loss was really a setup for your next level. What felt like abandonment was actually alignment. And what seemed like rejection was just God's way of saying, "That's not where you belong. I've got something better. Trust me. So dry your tears. Lift your head. Walk forward, because what left wasn't meant to carry you into the next season. And what didn't open wasn't the end of the road. It was the beginning of the right one." You've been wearing yourself out trying to hold it all together, trying to fix what's broken, trying to keep everybody happy, trying to plan every detail so nothing falls apart. But the more you try to control, the more things seem to spin out of control. The more you force it, the more frustrated you get. The more you grasp, the more it slips through your fingers. That's because you were never meant to be the master of every outcome. You are never created to carry the burden of being the answer to every problem. There comes a moment in every life where you have to confront the truth. You are not in control. And that's not defeat, that's deliverance. That's the moment your soul takes a breath. That's the moment the weight begins to lift. Because control is a burden, and it will wear you down. It will keep you anxious. It will make you suspicious. It will rob you of your peace. When you live trying to micromanage every detail, you miss the beauty of divine flow. You miss the power of trust. You miss the wonder of surrender. And some of you have been losing sleep, not because the enemy is attacking, but because you won't release what was never yours to manage. You've got plans, blueprints, strategies, and that's good. But don't confuse planning with control. You can prepare without pretending to be the author of the outcome. You can be diligent without being obsessed. Sometimes the greatest move of faith is to lift your hands, back away from the wheel, and say, God, I'm done trying to do this my way. I release the outcome. I release the pressure. I release the people. I release the timeline. You've been gripping too tight. You've been white, knuckling the process. And now you're tired, not just in your body, but in your spirit. Your soul is weary because you're wrestling with things you should have surrendered. You're trying to force doors open that only open with obedience, not effort. You're trying to keep people who were never meant to stay. You're trying to control circumstances that are meant to shape you, not break you. Let it go. That doesn't mean give up. That doesn't mean stop caring. It means stop clutching so tight that your fists are too full to receive what God wants to place in your hands. You've got to make room, and room is made when you release control. You may not know how, you may not see when, you may not understand why. But trust is not built on explanation. It's built on revelation. This is the season where you stop chasing certainty and start walking by faith. This is the season where peace becomes more important than plans. This is the moment where you choose freedom over fear, faith over formulas, and presence over pressure. So take your hands off it, not because you're losing, but because you're finally learning what it means to win. There comes a moment when you have to decide what you're going to carry. Life is heavy. There's no denying that. You'll be tempted to pick up worry, to hold on to guilt, to drag around the weight of what they said, what they did, what you didn't do, what you wish you had. And before you know it, your soul is overloaded with burdens that were never part of your calling. But there is one weight, and only one, that you were meant to carry, and that is your faith. Faith is not just a feeling. It's not a Sunday word. It's not something you wear when things are easy. Faith is a weapon. Faith is a foundation. Faith is what keeps you anchored when the winds of life try to blow you off course. Faith is the weight that makes you strong, not weary. It's the only thing that, the more you carry it, the lighter you feel. Everything else drains you, but faith fuels you. You've been holding on to what people said about you. Let that go and carry faith. You've been carrying the weight of unanswered questions. Let that go and carry faith. You've been dragging around past failures and future fears. Lay those down and pick up your faith. Because faith doesn't deny the storm. Faith just tells the storm who's in charge. Faith doesn't pretend there's no pain. Faith says, even in this pain, I still believe. Faith doesn't always have the answers, but it trusts the one who does. You don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. Faith is what gives you the courage to step anyway. Some of you are walking through fire right now. You're in a season where nothing makes sense. The doors are closed, the phone isn't ringing, the prayers feel unanswered, and it's easy to reach for fear, for anger, for doubt. But in that moment, the greatest act of power you can make is to say, I still believe, not because it's easy, not because everything's perfect, but because your faith isn't built on circumstances, it's built on the character of a faithful God. You're not called to carry the pressure of perfection. You're not called to carry every outcome. You're not called to carry people's opinions or your past regrets. You are called to carry faith, faith that God is with you, faith that something good can still come from something broken, faith that you're not done yet, faith that your tears are not wasted, faith that delay is not denial, faith that there is purpose in your process. So if you're going to carry anything into this next season, let it be faith. If you're going to lift anything when your hands are tired, let it be faith. If you're going to build anything, build it on faith. Because faith never fails, faith never folds, and faith, real faith, is the only weight that won't weigh you down.